Discrete trial instruction, or DTI, is a form of intervention within the field of applied behavior analysis, or ABA. There are four components of DTI: a discriminative stimulus, where the interventionist delivers an instruction to the client; a response from the child; a consequence, where the interventionist provides some form of feedback to let the child know if they produced an incorrect response or rewards the child for the correct response; and finally, an inter-trial interval, where the interventionist and the child take a quick break before starting another trial. DTI is based on B.F. Skinner's idea of operant conditioning, which is a type of learning that occurs as a result of an interaction between behavior and its consequences. Applied behavior analysis, or ABA, is a field of study that involves the collection of data to assess the systematic modification of environmental conditions. Along with DTI, other techniques within the field of ABA include shaping, modeling, and peer training. As you've read in the textbook, there are many studies that support the use of DTI as an intervention for children with autism. I don't believe that discrete trial instruction is an effective intervention for children with autism for a few reasons. First of all, DTI must be combined with other forms of behavioral interventions to be effective. Smith, 2001, states that DTI must be combined with other interventions to enable children to initiate the use of their skills and display these skills across settings. The textbook states that DTI cannot be considered the sole cause of improvement in early intensive behavioral intervention programs because additional behavioral techniques are employed in such programs. Another reason why I don't believe DTI should be used for an autism intervention comes from Smith, 2013, who talks about how a large majority of our research focuses on interventions delivered by study personnel, usually in tightly controlled environments such as laboratories, specialized ABA classrooms, or distraction-free areas set up to provide one-on-one instruction. These conditions are usually not what one would experience in school and home-based settings, which makes this research less applicable to how ABA is taught in real-world settings. The third point is that DTI requires a lot of training. Lovis, 1987, created the UCLA model, which began as a treatment program for children with ASDs under age 4. He used DTI as the primary treatment and stressed teaching skills in home settings. He suggests that children receive 40 hours per week of one-to-one ABA instruction for 2 to 3 years. DTI occurs during the first year in the child's home. If there are other children in the home, it may be difficult for there to be effective one-on-one training without distractions. This 40 hours every week can be difficult on the child with autism. It's extremely intensive and could very quickly wear on a child. Also, other family members may suffer due to the intrusion of this intensive, time-consuming approach on typical family life. Siblings may not get the attention they need since the focus is on the child with autism, and this may hinder the development of positive sibling relationships. Many studies stress the importance of parent involvement in the teaching of DTI, but a lot of parents don't have the time to become trained in teaching DTI to their child, as well as doing the actual teaching after they have been trained. Consider a single-parent family who relies on the income of that one parent to survive. That parent won't have the time necessary to devote to training for and teaching DTI. Smith et al. 2000 replicated Lovis's UCLA study, which included a parent training group that was taught for 5 hours per week over the course of 3 to 9 months. This is a very time-consuming commitment and may not be feasible for many families. The textbook also talks about how parents and siblings can act as therapists to implement DTI. This can hinder the development of sibling relationships since a sibling is now acting as a therapist as opposed to his sibling. Early intervention is crucial for the development of the skills necessary to communicate, but this is also an important time for siblings and parents to develop relationships with the child with autism. In terms of finding an interventionist who is able to administer DTI or ABA, it may be difficult. There are not a lot of board-certified behavioral analysts readily available to serve children with autism. The Behavior Analyst Certification Board website, bacb.com, allows you to search for and contact board-certified analysts in a specific area. I used the search to find certificates within a 25-mile radius of Cedar Falls, and the results gave me one person. It is likely that most of the children with autism who are receiving DTI or ABA intervention within this 25-mile radius of Cedar Falls are receiving the intervention from someone who is untrained or minimally trained in DTI, resulting in an ineffective treatment. Reliance on the formation of an intense one-on-one relationship with a trainer does almost nothing to enhance the child's ability to cope with group situations found in everyday life or to model the appropriate behavior of same-age peers. If you're focusing on the one-on-one relationship between the client and interventionist, there's no way for the client to generalize that information to group settings. And if the child is working only with an adult on this intervention, he or she will not have the same age peers as models. The textbook talks about how there is no research to support DTI's effects on children with more mild forms of autism, which include Rett syndrome or childhood disintegrative disorder, and how, in fact, there is not data to support that behavioral interventions are effective for children diagnosed with Rett syndrome. And finally, there is only a certain group of children with autism who are qualified to receive DTI as an intervention. A child needs to have certain skills that include the ability to accept an object, respond when others have control over reinforcers, scan an array of items, imitate others, follow simple instructions, and sit down without engaging in self-stimulatory behaviors. A child also has to be able to learn best in highly structured situations. This treatment won't be as effective for children who can't learn in highly structured situations and for those children who don't have the specific skills previously mentioned. In conclusion, I don't believe that DTI is an effective intervention for children with autism. DTI must be combined with other treatments. It requires a lot of intensive therapy that can be straining on the child and his or her relationships with family members. Children may not be receiving quality intervention if there is not access to available board-certified interventionists, and there are specific criteria that a child has to meet before qualifying for DTI as an intervention.